Hi guys, René here and welcome to the workshop. Today we have a very special build on the cards, probably the most special one we have done so far. This is the latest Pinarello Bolide F time trial frame set, and we're going to build it into a top tier time trial bike today. It's the first one that we'll be working on, and there's probably next to zero information about it anywhere on the internet, either on YouTube or even on the manufacturer's website. So I want to do a really thorough dig and show you everything that you get with the frame, all the information that you might need when ordering it, and how it is built, the construction, the quality, etc. So as you probably know, the Bolide F is the highest end time trial offering from Pinarello. It's what Team Ineos use and have been using for a few years. This is the latest iteration that we have here with the special Olympic edition paint job, which is absolutely stunning. So the rear is finished in Luxter blue, which I have already shown you on Dogmas, which is, well, even here. On the Dogma it's a standard color, and the front, and I'm actually not sure about the name of it, but it's a transition from gold to bronze depending on the light touching it, similarly as you get violet and blue transitions in the rear of the Luxter blue. So yeah, it's absolutely stunning. This latest edition also features the ribbed seat post, as debuted on the Our Record bike of Filippo Ganna, and it's a rather trick touch that you don't really see on any other production bike. And now they've carried it over to a carbon version as well, not just the fancy 3D printed one. So yeah, these are supposed to help the airflow around the rider's legs and keep the flow attached, and it continues all the way to the specially designed seat post, which is also painted to match, so that's a beautiful touch. And of course, as you would expect, in order to be able to fit the ribbed seat post, you need this plastic insert in there just so you can clamp it in the frame. Actually, the seat post clamp, or the saddle rail clamp, in fact is the same 3D printed titanium model that you get on the Dogma F and X. So yeah, that's really neat touch, really secure fit and loads of adjustment. So definitely a fan of that solution. Now, talking more about the details of the frame set. Actually, it's unlike many other time trial bikes that we work with, it very closely resembles, in construction at least, a road bike and, well, the Dogma F in this case. So you have no hinge fork here. This is a regular fork design with a regular 1 1/8 of an inch steerer that needs to be cut to size. The updated fork legs feature really rather deep and thin profiles, and they hug the front wheel really rather closely and have this beautiful sculpted design. You also get hidden through axle exit ports on both ends, which is also a nice aero touch, also visually. And the brake hose and cable routing actually is done through the headset in a very similar fashion as you get on road bikes. And having a standard steerer means that you could theoretically use any base bar that is compatible with the standard steers, so that gives you room for adjustment and customization. Although this is probably the only bike that has a base bar and aero bar setup as standard that you probably don't need to replace, because it's just really damn good, and it's how it should be possibly with all frames. Normally what the aero bars that you get with the frame set are quite terrible, to be honest, and not usable. This is an exemption, although you could probably expect that given the astronomical price of this frame set, which is basically twice the price of anything else that's on the market out there. But that's another story. If you want the exclusivity of the Bolide, then yeah, you get what you're paying for. Obviously, through axles front and rear, as you'd expect these days. Then you got a wheel hugging cutout at the seat or the down tube, which in itself is rather narrow as well, and has also a cutout for an aero bottle, but can be used without one, unlike the Colnago, for example, that I have at the moment. The top tube also is a rather traditional shape, and then of course it flows to the ribbed seat tube, which then houses or melts with the very deep bottom bracket area that houses an ITA threaded shell, as you get with all Pinarellos these days. You can also notice the rather strikingly asymmetric design in this portion of the frame and also in the chainstays. So one of them is taller and thinner, the other one is a bit thicker and dropped down. This is probably aimed at introducing more stiffness and power transfer from the drivetrain, while also saving weight and drag. So obviously you get flat mounting points, which are nicely faced. Also the bottom bracket is nicely faced and finished, so hopefully you don't get any issues with that. The top tube actually is rather close to horizontal, just a very slight drop there. Then we got another beautiful detail here in the back with the closed through axle design and rather dramatically dropped seat stays that also flex very closely inwards to the wheel. Let me just show you. Yeah, so as you can see, they hug the rear wheel really rather closely, presumably to help with the airflow in this area. And yeah, it's just beautiful, no matter how you look at it. You've got an integrated seat clamp in the back. Now this is slightly different than on the Dogmas because it uses 3 bolts and is rather long. I suppose this is because of the increased section length that you get with the time trial seat post. And yeah. The headset bearings appear to be exactly the same as you get on the Dogmas as well, although they're not it's not the ovalized section as you get on the latest Dogma F, which I think is a bit of a pity, because then it would mean that the position and the rotation of your base bar and thus the aero bars is perfectly fixed and can't be tweaked sideways. Here you have to adjust it manually. If I turn the frame in the light, and you can see the transition from the copper to gold, which is rather stunning. Another good thing about this frame set is the width of the size range. So if I recall correctly, you have 5 sizes of this frame set, starting from really rather small, the 450, and going all the way up to this one, the 550, which is the largest. Normally with other time trial bikes you get 3, maybe 4 sizes at the best. So here you can choose more accurately, and also the smallest frame size is really suitable for small riders like myself, because it has a really low stack, one of the lowest stacks I have seen in time trial bikes in general. So yeah, all good there, but that's a typical Pinarello feature, so definitely an advantage of this frame set. With the frame set out of the way, let's have a look at what you're actually getting with it, because as I said, the information is rather scarce. I've already mentioned the seat post, so as far as I'm aware, you only get one size of this. Maybe with the smaller sizes, it will depend on which length you will get, but We're expecting some other sizes as well soon, so I'll be able to update you on that a bit later on. But this one, the 550, seems plenty long enough. So yeah, that should cover basically any rider out there. Then we have the base bar. The information is not very clear on this, so yeah, now it's probably a good time to elaborate on that. So the great thing about this base bar is that it's extremely narrow. It's 34 centimeters center to center, which is again the narrowest I have seen on any bike that comes as standard. Sometimes other time trial bikes like the Shift TT comes the 42, which is frankly bonkers, to be honest. Absolutely no reason for that. It's just a drag. So yeah, this one is really good in that regard. The stem length is 120 millimeters, so you do get a bit of extra reach because of that. Again, the design is actually quite similar to a road bike integrated handlebar, except that it has mounting options and has no drops. So the routing is fairly similar. Also uses the standard Pinarello wedge and this funky little offset top cap, which is similarly shaped as the road versions, but it's twisted to the side and smaller, but again very similar. And the neat thing is that you can actually install a computer mount or any other add-on mount on the bottom of the base bar. There are 2 threads in there prepared for it, and yeah, that's great actually for aero testing, because it means we have a fixed point for our sensor and don't need to worry about the mounting options. The aero bar attaches via the slots here, and you got plenty of options for width adjustment. As you can see, although I would assume that most riders would just use the innermost option to get a narrow width for the aero bars. Although I have seen Ineos riders experimenting with going wide, so the risers are in the way of the rider's legs. Maybe it's done because of that, but we'll be experimenting with this in the future, I'm sure. Also, as you can see, this is the so-called flat base bar and not the one that you see the riders racing on, which is a shame. It is possible to order the dropped version of the bar, which has exactly the same parameters, except the hood or the cow horn area drops down. Looks really cool, to be honest. But at first I thought that this is also varied by frame size, that this large one uses the flat version of the bar, so just you don't get too much drop. But that's not the case. You have to buy that one separately, which is unfortunate, and it costs a tidy sum of 2,200 euros, which is painful. But still, this one is a great base bar, and as I said, for taller riders this is probably the preferable option, so you don't get too much weight on the front and too much drop when cornering. Yeah, seat post, base bar covered, through axles, exactly the same as you get on the road models, which is great, no proprietary stuff. Then you get, of course, a bit of foam tubing for the brake hose, the rear one. This is the clamp for the seat post. As I already mentioned, uses 3 bolts instead of 2 and is longer than what you get on the road versions. Goes right here. Then you get a removable front derailleur hanger. Luckily now it is not riveted on like with previous versions, but there are threads and bolts, yes. Tiny ones, but there are 3 of them, so you can install and remove this as needed. This will be a 1x setup, so we won't be needing this one. Then we got a battery mount for Shimano Di2, which this bike is arguably designed for. And this again is located in the exact same position as you would get on a Dogma F. So in the bottom bracket, you twist it, lock it in place and put the cover on, and the battery is installed. And now let's look at the party trick of this very frame set. So that would be the so-called most Olympic edition aero bar system. which closely resembles the custom most aero bar systems that have been used in the past by Team Ineos and Sky before that. So we got these aerodynamic sections for the forearms. These exist in two different lengths. So these are the 285s. There's also a 315 in existence, according to Pinarello at least. But you get the short one even with this largest frame size, which I assume is to match UCI regulations. And there's a surprisingly detailed guide on their website about how you can set these up, which honestly I didn't expect from an Italian company, but there you have it. It's a bonus. So this is the main section made out of carbon fiber and actually really surprisingly light. And yeah, well made as well, just like the rest of the kit. And yeah, really nice, comfortable bend and fit. On top of these, you get a pair of, again, carbon fiber arm caps, which look like these. Rather standard, pretty narrow as well, so good support. One thing I missed though is, well, if you look at this on their website as a separate product, you see 3 different versions of the pads with various winglets on the side, and of course these standard ones. Here with the bike or the frame, you're only getting the standard ones, which is a shame given the price, but it is what it is. Then on top of these goes a pair of Velcro attachments that are glued on, and then on top of those you get these foam inserts, which are laser cut, rather nicely made, neoprene foam, so all good here. Definitely a high quality option. Then the next thing that the bars themselves slot into are these little cradles, which are used to adjust the reach of the bar, like so. Obviously you get the hardware for that, and then you also have the cover for that. The good thing is that here you have a rather large cavity, so you can mess around with the wiring and the cables and stuff, so that's a good thing. So reach adjustment is taken care of by that part. Then you have also angle adjustment via this part. And let me just check if this is infinitely adjustable or it has steps. Looks like it has steps, to be honest. Yeah, it does. Which means there's fewer adjustment options, but also it can't slip. And if I recall the specification correctly, you can adjust these from flat. Obviously no one uses that, but you get 15 degrees all the way to 30 theoretically. So that's how you do that. Then, of course, these go on top of regular risers, which looks like, well, they look like these. The great thing is that they're split, so you don't need to undo the wiring when you remove these, so that's excellent actually. Yeah, the thing that is not that great is that you actually don't get a whole lot of them, so let's just check how many you actually get. Yeah, that's not a lot at all. So yeah, that's 40 millimeters for each side of the main 10 mil risers. Yeah, it's not nearly enough for a rider of this size. And then you got 2 more 5 mil ones for fine adjustment. Yeah, I would really like to see these come in kind of big blocks, like maybe a 60 to 80 mil base riser and then some of these on top. Yeah, this is going to be slightly awkward and definitely not enough for this rider. They can be ordered separately, obviously, for a tidy sum as well. but maybe we'll just be better off if I have this copied and machined out of a single block, so we have a larger base that we can start off from. Then another thing we need for the base bar is this transition that sits right here, and I think these are actually for the dropped base bar. It appears so because they don't fit on this one, and they have, as you can see, quite a bit of curvature built into them, so I think this is not what we're going to use. And then there's a, yeah, this is a pair of flat ones. That will go right on here. Yeah, this is how it works. Yeah, rather neat, to be honest. I just wish they would include some kind of cover for these when they're not used. But maybe we can do that. I'm sure we can do that. Okay, yeah, those are the risers covered. Another thing, it's quite crucial, are the grips. Yeah, these are rather cool. Got some 3D printed grippers that go right here onto the end of the base bar in a very similar fashion to the sink extensions that we use. There's also a cut line in case you want to go higher up than you normally would get within your UCI category. And these are designed for the standard plug style shifters for Shimano. Yeah, I think we would probably work also on a pair that uses a similar design to what I have on my speaker bars. So we have a hooked clamp which you can hold, and then we route the sprint shifter out so we can raise the bars even more. Yeah, but we'll see how the testing goes with these. It's definitely an option because you can easily, well, 3D scan this and do a variation on it, and it's removable again for easy cable routing and yeah, customization. So yeah, pretty cool. And then yeah, I think that's pretty much everything covered except the computer mount, which is right here, and again very closely resembles the sync system that we often use. Yeah, 3D printed, like so. Most branding, of course. Sits right here, so yeah, that's a nice and tall position, so easy to read. Also acts as a stiffening brace for the extensions. Interchangeable inserts, of course. Although, yeah, it's not a twist lock, which is rather handy in a lot of situations, but a standard one, so the insert doesn't move. Still, it's rather neatly done, really sturdy as well. And then you have these spacers, so in case you have a wider bar position, you can adjust and extend the computer mount like so to still make it able to fit. Which honestly I don't think we're going to use that, but still there's the option. So these are both right ones. Here it is, left and the right. Yeah, like that. Another thing we definitely will not use is this little lever for the through axles. Although maybe for training it is a nice touch, but it does add some unnecessary aero drag. I can't believe so many riders are riding around with this installed, even in races, but yeah. And of course you do get most branded carbon grip paste too, just to be sure. Okay, I think these are all the details covered. Now let's build this beauty up and have a look at what it looks like as a complete bike.